Today, October 12th, 2023, title of the class, Substance is the Source of Everything, class number 587. I want to start with a meditation. And that meditation is, what is God? We don't want to define what God is. We don't want to tell what God is or tell anybody what God is. We just want to think and center our thoughts right now on what is God. God is love. God is soul. God is life. I cannot define God. If I could, it would not be God. We are not going to define what God is. We are going to remove all of our thoughts from person, place, and thing. And we're just going to think and say the word God. God, the divine consciousness of my being. God, the soul of my being. God, the law of my being. God, the substance of my being. The substance of all forms. God, the creative principle of the universe. The law into my being. The substance, the law of all forms, of all formation. God, the substance, the law, the cause, and even the form of all effect. God, the substance, the law, the life eternal of all forms. I cannot separate God, life, from its form, that which I am. Amen. That gives me such a powerful feeling, a feeling of confidence, a feeling of knowing that this substance that is God is the substance that I am, is the substance of the form of that which I am. Cannot change, always has been, always will be. I can never be anything other than that. And that is that which I can't define, which I can't describe. I can't even give a picture of it. I can just know that I am that. God is the substance of all forms. That's why I titled this, The Substance is the Source of Everything. Our purpose is to recognize the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God. This is the source of all supply. Now, the first time I ever heard that, well, I read it by Walter Lanyon. He got it from Father Divine. Joel Goldsmith met Father Divine, and he has it in one of his books. Now, to show you the synchronicity of what God is, when I started to contemplate what I was going to talk about today, it was Monday. And I started contemplating it, and I started thinking about the presence of God, the consciousness, the recognition of the spirit of the consciousness. Then I said, wait a minute, I've read that. Let me go find it. So I opened up my book by Lanyon. I think it's called Thrust in the Scripture. And he had that written there, and I was like, oh, wow, this is what I've been thinking about. And so now here he's saying it, and I know Father Divine said it, and something told me, go listen to this clip. I said, well, let me just, no. What was amazing was I hit YouTube, and what came up was Father Divine. And I'm like, okay. I done got off somewhere and what basically call it a time warp. You just kind of just trapped in this situation where everything is working together for good. You know, it's like you might do something. You might look at your clock and you see 8:28. I know Jamal used to say, I see this 8:28. And I start thinking about, where is it? It's over there in Paul said it. All things work together for good for them that love God. Romans. So I said, wow, you know. So I'm thinking about this, and I opened the book, and he's talking about it. And then it dawned, and at the end of one of the chapters, almost at the end of one of the chapters, I have a book called Consciousness Rising, or Rising in Consciousness by Joel Goldsmith. And I had made a note in the front of the book, and it said page 5. It had a big asterisk beside it. And I looked on page 5, and I said, well, no, I'm going to read the first 4. I'm just going to read from page 1. So I started reading through. I was like, wow, this is the stuff I'm talking about. And down at the asterisk, it had the goal. This is Joel Goldsmith says, the goal of meditation is to recognize the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God. I'm going, oh, wow, there it is. You know, I'm saying, this is just constant recognition of the spirit of the presence of the consciousness, the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God. This is the source of all supply. This is it. You cannot go out here in the world looking, let me go get me a good job, let me do some great investments, let me do this, let me do that, and that's going to bring me more supply. It's not. It's really not. It's the consciousness of the presence of God that appears as supply in form. And that supply can be anything from money to tomatoes. You know, whatever is necessary, it just shows up as that. So, no wonder a lily in the water can say, all things are yours. And understand that. Because the understanding that all things are yours means that you have recognized, not just saying all things are mine, but you have recognized the spirit of the consciousness. That's in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 21 through 23, where Paul talks about all things are yours. Well, you be of Paul. You know, I'm of Paul, or I'm of Apollos, or I'm of this guy. You know, I studied Goldsmith, or I studied Lanyon, or Lillian DeWaters. I don't care who you study. All things are yours, period. It's already stamped. It's etched in your soul. That's it. All things are yours. Now, I put down a couple of pieces. I'm just giving this to you the way it all just flashed up in my consciousness. And that was some examples of people that recognize the consciousness, the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God. Well, but before I do that, this jumped in this morning right when I got ready to, I was sitting here contemplating, getting ready to get going. And this popped in my head. Over there in Isaiah 45, I want to make sure I quote it to you right. I think it's verse 7. I could be wrong. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it's verse 7. It's Isaiah 45, though, where it says, I create light and I make darkness. I create good and I make evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. I started thinking, I'm like, wait a minute. So God makes good and God makes evil. And we know that's not true because in Genesis 1, it is written, God did not make any evil. And over in John 1, we know that the Word became flesh. That means form. The word dwelt within them. It says among in the King James. And I don't remember what it says in the Peshitta, the Aramaic. But I do know this. I heard Neville say, not among, but within them. And I said, well, that fits everything else. The word Christ, God, dwells within. I walk in them and I talk in them. I am their salvation. So, in thinking that way, and I'm thinking about it, I said, well, I, the Lord, what's he talking about me? This is Isaiah. I could be wrong, but I'm telling y'all to go contemplate this. I, the Lord, the word Lord, law. What law? Human law. The law of good and evil. The law of karma. Remember, I am above the law. I am. So if the I am is above the law of human consciousness, then that means that this human law of karma, cause and effect, good and evil, that must mean that there's something in our consciousness, I like to call it thinking, choice. It tries to take over. It's ego. And it makes good and it creates evil. And good and evil, from that respect, is nothing more than appearances. And it has an effect on us. But as long as we remain focused on the fact that I am, and I am is Christ, what does that have to do with good and evil? Nothing. So the whole idea is when something is suggested to us that it's good or that it's evil and it's coming from what we call the material world, we know them well, that can't be truth. I am the truth. I am the Lord. Now we're talking about the spiritual. It's up to us to clarify where this is coming from. I am the Lord and I change not. What Lord is that? This Jeremiah, I think. I am the Lord. That means I am the Lord. I am God. I don't change. God does not change its view. God is always looking at what it created, which is intelligence. It is a divine principle that created the universe that expressed itself as us. And our job is to contemplate that till we get real comfortable with the fact of I am the Lord, I am God. I am peace. I am God. And you're comfortable with it. It doesn't make you feel crazy anymore that somebody might will it ostracize you or persecute you. They're going to persecute you whether you believe you are the I am God or not. Somebody's going to talk about you no matter what. So what do you care? So with that in mind, and I understand all that, I know if there's good and evil coming into my experience, that means that there's a lower level of consciousness that is doing that. And it is a law that if you sow to the flesh, you reap what? Corruption. So therefore, understanding that I, the true I, the I that I am, I cannot make good and I cannot form and create evil. I can't do that. But there seems to be some suggested I that can do that. That's why Jesus said, I stand at the door and knock. What door? The door to what we call human consciousness. I stand at that door. Let me in here, and the flow of the presence of God will cause me to do what? Know the truth and be free. And let all this other stuff go. Let all else go and follow me. All of this stuff starts to make spiritual sense. Now, let's talk about a few people who recognized this and things became extremely clear to them. All right, the first one is, let's look at Moses. As they came to me, I wrote them down. I didn't go research the Bible and try to pick out guys or whoever. who came into this. It's just as it flowed, I wrote it down. So, Moses recognized it in the voice, I am that I am. He was up on that mountainside. He saw a burning bush. Now, the literal Aramaic translation of I am that I am is, I am the living God. And I've said this a million times. Moses, there was nobody out there but Moses contemplating this divine principle, having a vision. In Aramaic, Rocco Errico talked about all of the visions that they had. He was like, they're in a trance or either they fall into a dream. You've done this before. You sat and all of a sudden you seem like you lost yourself and you saw yourself doing some wonderful things. Neville calls it imagination. You see yourself just doing something really wonderful. I've seen myself do a lot of wonderful things. The most recent being, because I jog so much, I've seen myself jogging around the pond, smiling and having a good time and getting back in my truck and coming home. And I'm sitting here at the house. And I didn't forcefully decide I'm going to go down and see myself jog around. It's just something that I knew I was going to go jogging, and I was going to get myself together and get my water together. And then the next thing you know, sometimes it happens in the truck. It's just you see yourself with that which it is that you desire. And so he sees, I am the living God. Now this revelation sent him to Egypt and emancipated the Israelites. I mean, he didn't care what Pharaoh had to say. He went, they were emancipated before he got there. Woo! They crossed the sea on dry land. They were fed manna in the desert. They received fresh water, come on, by throwing a tree in the so-called undrinkable water, and they drank water that came from a rock. Now, this is either a man who realized through contemplation and meditation the truth, or he's smoking crack like a big time. This man that's seen all this, let me tell you something. It does not happen out here unless it has happened already in you. Moses has seen all of this before he ever gets to Egypt. Look how long it took him to get there. Oh, and to make matters worse, he's 80 years old. What 80-year-old man you know is going to go and fight with Pharaoh and all these people? When I say all these people, I'm talking about the Israelites. You ever tried to free a bunch of folks? Have you ever been in a classroom trying to teach kids, especially somewhere between the 8th and the 10th grade? You ever tried to teach them anything? You ever had kids at home you tried to tell anything to? Unless you have seen this thing already worked out, you can forget it. Never calls it imagination. I think the thing that confuses people is he says your own wonderful human imagination, and that throws you off. But in reality, Jesus used his imagination and saw this boy sitting up under the fig tree. He had already seen going to the cross. He had already seen being resurrected. How else could you say, I am the resurrection? I am the life. How could you see, put me in the ground in 3 days, I'm going to be right? How could you say that? You've seen it already because you have recognized the spirit of the consciousness. The key word, spirit. That's what moved over the face of the water. The spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God. These people out there in that wilderness, remember now, their clothes didn't ever wear out. Their shoes didn't wear out. Now, they're walking. You know they're not barefoot. And their shoes didn't wear out. And then they eventually entered the promised land. Why? Because Moses recognized the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God, which is nothing more than creating your own experience as you go. All things are yours. What do you want? Do you have it in your own consciousness? Do you have it in the spirit? If so, it'll give you a picture of it, and you won't be able to tell anybody how it came about. It just comes about. That's just it. That's consciousness. That's consciousness that is expanded out to the level of the presence of God. Now think about it. Whoever wrote, they think some guy named Second Isaiah wrote Genesis 1. Well, whoever wrote Genesis 1 recognized the spiritual presence and was given the wisdom to express it in literary form. And he comes up with what? A completion of creation. Creation is complete. You just have to see it. Now, they had prophets, kings, who recognized it, and they were able to perform all kinds of miraculous feats. Kings like David and Solomon, and then prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Then there was John the Baptist. Remember him? He felt the need for Jesus to baptize him. Why? He saw something. He recognized the spirit of the consciousness of the presence. Jesus said, no, go ahead and do this so that what? Fulfillment would take place. That we would fulfill our purpose. And because Simon, which means hearing, Simon recognized the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God and told Jesus, you the Christ. That changed him to Peter the Rock. But guess what? His consciousness had to expand to the rock. He didn't start out the rock. I mean, this is the same man that was standing there saying, I didn't know this man. He said, you were with him. No, I've never seen him. I don't know this man. Why? This human part that is saying, man, you better distance yourself from this dude, or you going right where he went to. However, at the end of the day, how did Peter end up? Peter said, don't crucify me the same way that they crucified my Lord and Savior. Hang me upside down. In other words, yeah, I identify with him. But it takes a minute. Meditation. That's why we started out with meditation. We cannot understand the things that we're going to go through, but if we stand knowing, like Moses standing out there, there's a Red Sea, and Pharaoh coming up on him, and he cries out to a God which is separate and apart from him. But what he hears is a voice on the inside say, why are you crying out to me? Lift up your rod. How much truth do you understand? And Moses said, you will not see these Egyptians again. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, and they go across on dry land. What does all this mean? When you awaken to understanding that the presence of God, heaven opens, and you do what? You realize there's nothing that opposes you. Nothing at all. You just have to be satisfied to walk through it. It's as simple as that. Now, the recognition of the presence of the consciousness of God causes us to realize what it means to say with conviction, I am God. You have to recognize the spiritual consciousness to be able to say, I am God. See, and where this recognition is that I am God, where it's realized, we simultaneously know nothing is missing in our experience. It's there. We just don't see the spirit. We just keep trying to get a God to do something. But when we close our mind off to anything other than God, when we leave all and follow him, what happens? The mind gets still. The thoughts they come in and you rejecting them. You're not fighting with them. You're seeing them come. You know. Look at what's going on in Israel right now. They're trying to get back at Hamas. They're just going to be hung up doing that. They've been fighting ever since. And I was in college in European history, and this lady came out and said, you know, they had a 6-day war with Syria in 1967. Israel has always been fighting because they have not come into an awareness of the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God. They are not coming to, they're still waiting on a Savior to come. And they keep fighting and fighting and fighting. And the Savior is within them. It is the Christ consciousness. But they can't accept that. Because Jesus is no. Now they got a group called Jews for Jesus. Y'all just don't get it, man. You don't get it at all. I look at it and I realize I don't care what I'm seeing. I realize the presence of God is right there. And the key is it does not come in the mouth. It does not affect me. Nothing is missing in our experience. All things are ours. Our job is to accept them as existing and call them into our experience, all based on our identity. Nothing comes into your experience other than who you know yourself to be. And if you are comfortable with I am God, then it's coming into your experience because it's already there. Because God is the substance of that which you desire. It's just going to express itself. It does not have any choice. Jesus' recognition of the spiritual presence expressed the perfect picture of no such thing as an absence of wine at the wedding in Cana, and no such thing as not enough food for the mass crowd of more than 5,000 on the mountain. Jesus didn't need to change material water into wine, nor did he need to multiply material fish and bread. He only needed to see what is. Let me say that again. He needed to see what is. What? The spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God. That means he saw heaven and his spiritual consciousness. He didn't need to change broken bodies into healing. Why? Well, that's easy. Ecclesiastes 3. I quote that a lot. That which is to be has already been. That which is being is now. And what God does is done forever. Nothing can be added to it or nothing taken away. Can you see that? I don't care what situation you find yourself in, you know damn well God already created God. He ain't created anything else. Psalm 82. Your law, what does it say? Ye are gods, children of the Most High. So the moment you start acting like what you are, I ain't say go out telling people what you are. You start acting like what you are, and you will start to see the outer appearance change because you have experienced the realization of the presence of God on the inside of you. You can't help but realize what you are. You take it long enough, at some point it just kind of fills up and you say, this is it. I don't need to tell anybody anything. I'm good. They'll come to you. I got a couple of people calling me now saying, in fact, this girl I'm in school with, I told y'all about her once before. We went to college together, and we were looking for her when Cynthia passed, and we couldn't find her. I hadn't heard from her in years. And one day she just happened to pull up a thing, and I had a piece of paper on it, and my name and phone number was on it, and she called me. I had heard from her. We talked a couple of months ago. I sent her a couple of clips, and she's in a wheelchair. She walks on a walker. She called me. I hadn't heard from her in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and she called me and she said, I hope I'm not waking you up. You know, I just love it when people do that. They call you right early in the morning. I hope I'm not waking you up. What do you think you done? You know what I'm saying? I'm 126 years old, and I like to wait. I like to lay there until 10 o'clock. I don't need you. I'm good. And you calling me right at like 9:45, something like that, and I'm waking up. My eyes are just popping open. I hope I'm not waking you up. No, you ain't waking me up. My eyes popped open already, but I was just laying here. And she goes, well, I'm laying in the bed myself right now because I didn't feel like getting up. Well, why are you calling me? When you get up, call me. And so she was like, I needed some inspiration. I said, okay. Then she said, but I don't want to talk right now. Isn't that wonderful? I don't want to talk right now, but I need the inspiration. I just need to get it in your head to call me when you get yourself up in the back. What I said, well, I'm going jogging somewhere around when it warms up a little more, around 11. I should be calling you somewhere in the vicinity of 12. I ended up calling her around 1:30 because you know how things go. I hadn't seen myself jog at 11. I was just throwing out the numbers. I went late, had a great jog, got finished, came back and called her. We talked for about an hour. She was like, you know, ever since we had that talk, I just need that inspiration. It's like you throw them little tidbits in there, and I think about them, and I said, well, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And so she was like, so, you know, don't forget, just because I don't call you, call me. I said, okay. You know, I'll put you on my radar now. That's just how it is. Now, think about it. Here's this woman. This is what this reminds me of. There's a woman with the issue of blood. She touched Jesus' clothes. Now, watch this. He didn't even know who touched him. There's a bunch of people out there. He's going, who touched me? They go, crazy. Who's smoking crack now? We are here. I'm going to know who touched you. And what does that mean? You see, she contemplated what he was doing. So she knew that if she was to get at one with him, what would happen? She saw what he saw. Heaven. And she saw it by what? Faith. What is faith? Understanding. This is praying in my name. All of it by feeling. It has nothing to do with words. All by feeling. See, this is praying in my name. According to the Gospel of Thomas, she became totally enveloped by the feeling of it is done and it was so. If I just touch his clothes, I'll be made whole. If I just touch his clothes, why? She had seen herself do this. Wow. She had no hidden agenda. She didn't call her issue of blood good or bad, good or evil. She let all else go. Remember now, she had suffered from the hands of physicians for I don't know how many years. I forgot to look at that. I don't know. But I know Kenny knows. She had suffered from these physicians somewhere like 12 years, I think, or something like that. Well, she let all else go. She let the physicians go. She let the beliefs go. She let all this, I need a doctor, go. She let all that go. And she followed the master consciousness, which was in her, in heaven. Where are your loved ones? They're in heaven. Where's heaven in you? How they doing? Well, why? Because it was up to you to save them. If you still here, if you still walking around and somebody that your loved one has transitioned, your job is to go within heaven and know that when you think of them, you think of light. They are the light. You have to know within you, none shall be lost. What did Jesus say when they picked up all that bread? When they picked up the food that was left over? Now, I know how many that was. It was 12 baskets left over. In metaphysics and mysticism, they add numbers together. Remember, Jesus used numbers, 3, 7. The Jews still do that. On the 8th day, they get somebody circumcised. New beginning. 3 is what? Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Trinity, man. What? Soul, body. See, that's the whole idea. So, she leaves everything, and she follows the master conscience. She's contemplating this thing. She knows the truth. And she receives what? A wholeness. Where did she Where did she get the wholeness from? I mean, when did she get it? When she realized it on the inside of herself. That's when she got the wholeness. Not when it showed up that she didn't have an issue of blood anymore. When she realized that she had everything. That's why I like it when Neville talks about living in the end. In your imagination, you realize you already have everything. There's nothing that you do not have. How about the man who was lying by the water for 38 years, waiting to be first at the stirring of the water? You'll find that in John 5. And I wrote down verse 14. Because Jesus knew that man had been laying there for a long time. How did Jesus know the man had been there for a long time? How did he know? What, he had been coming by the water and seeing the man laying there? Maybe so. Why didn't he stop one of them times and go, let me go fix this man? But he just kept, So, but now one day, what happens? Jesus comes up on this man. And he asked the man what? Will you be made whole? And the man said, well, an angel comes and stirs the water. Whoever's first to get in there, they're the one who they get the miracle. So wait a minute, let me get this right. God only deals one at a time. So why didn't he just bring one person out of Egypt? Why did he bring them all out? Something's wrong with this man thinking. He got the wrong image of what God is. Remember, that's why we did that meditation first. God is life. God is truth. God is freedom. God is love. So, Jesus looked at the man and said, will you be made whole? Finally the man says, if I was the first to get in the water, I ain't got nobody else. You get in there. And Jesus said, pick up your bed and walk. Man hopped up. Man went. He went out. I'm quite sure he was happy as a lark. Jesus found the man later on and said, go and sin no more. Or a worse thing is going to come upon you. What was the man's sin? He thought he was immortal. Not immortal. Mortal. A mortal being. That's what he thought he was. And Jesus said, you need to stop thinking like that. You need to realize, I am the Christ. I am God. I am a child of God. I am the Son of God. I am all that God is. There can't be anything else. The Word is omnipresent. So, he also knew that there was no such thing as a man who couldn't walk. This is Jesus. And Jesus knows there's no such thing as a man who can't walk. He also knew God was not a respecter of person, an angel stirring the water, and only the first one who gets in there gets the prize. That's preposterous. He knew the man had faith. He knew it. Paul said to each one is given the measure of faith. He knew that man had the mind of Christ, the same mind that he had, and Jesus touched the mind of the Christ in that man. It had nothing to do with that man's broken body. Jesus saw the perfect picture, the presence. As I said before, numbers have a significance. So if you take, he had been laying there for 38 years. This is how mysticism, this is how they interpret numbers. You add the 3 and the 8 together, and they reduce everything down to one single digit. So he takes the 3 and the 8. If you take that, you get 11. Then if you take the 11 and you add the 1 and the 1, you get a 2. What happens on day 2 in Genesis? Let there be a firmament. What does firmament mean? I got this from Emma Curtis. It's the firm attitude of mind. Greg Brayton says the same thing. They all say the same thing. The firm attitude of mind is faith. It is substance. That which stands under. So that man was convicted. If he got in the water first, he'd be healed. Jesus knew he was already whole and had always been whole. There was no time where he had a broken body. That mind is filled with what? The ideas of wholeness. Remember, we said a recognition of the spirit of the presence of the consciousness of God. We already know that God is right where we are. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. God is everywhere. Universal. Where is the spirit of the consciousness of God? Here. Within. When? Now. What is the presence? I am. Y'all could answer that question. What is the presence of God? I am. What is the substance Spirit uses to form my desire? Mind, capital M-I-N-D, consciousness. What are my desires? We covered this. I'm going to cover it in now. What are my desires? Ideas in mind. 1 Corinthians 2:16. We have the mind of Christ. The things that desire, my desire, the desires of my heart. That's the only reason Jesus could say whatever you desire when you pray. When you feel like you have that which you want, it's already in you. I want to express the mind of God. Well, you're going to express the divine ideas that you want. You have it. We have the mind of Christ. That makes us Christ. That makes us God. Jesus, by the recognition of the consciousness of the presence, made himself as God. That's why they want to hang him. You being only a man, you make yourself as God. Jesus realized he was at one accord with God. Jesus realized he thought it not robbery to be equal with God. These are, we talked about this last week, the good works we were made to live in. We were made to live in good works. When we recognize the spirit of the consciousness of the presence, when we think it not robbery to be equal with God, we simultaneously realize, I am the substance of everything. I am the understanding of everything. Everything is an idea, and that idea is expressed as I recognize the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God. So everybody on this class today, when we're done, when you get time, go read Isaiah 54. Expand your borders. Expand your borders. Expand your borders. What does that mean? Recognize the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God, and you will have recognized I am substance, and the substance is the source of everything. Amen. And so it is.